Chapter 23. Blinded, like a wild creature, Madeline Hammond ran to her room. She felt as if a stroke of lightning had shattered the shadowy substance of the dream she had made of real life. The wonder of Danny Maine's story, the strange regret with which she realized her injustice to Stuart, the astounding secret, as revealed by Padre Marquis, these were forgotten in the sudden consciousness of her own love. Madeline fled as if pursued. With trembling hands she locked the doors and drew the blinds of the windows that opened onto the porch, pushed the chairs aside so she could pace the length of her room. She was now alone, and she walked with soft, hurried, uneven steps. She could be herself here. She needed no mask. The long habit of hiding the truth from the world and from herself could be broken. The seclusion of her darkened chamber made possible that betrayal of herself to which she was impelled. She paused in her swift pacing to and fro. She liberated the thought that knocked at the gates of her mind. With quivering lips she whispered it, and then spoke it aloud. "I'll say it and hear it. I love him. I love him." She repeated the astounding truth, but she doubted her identity. Am I still Madeline Hammond? What has happened, and who am I? She stood where the light from one unclosed window fell upon her image in the mirror. Who is this woman? She expected to see a familiar, dignified person, a quiet, unruffled figure, a tranquil face with dark, proud eyes and calm, proud lips. No, she did not see Madeline Hammond. She did not see anyone she knew. Were her eyes, like her heart, playing her false? The figure before her was instinct with pulsating life. The hands she saw, clasped together, pressed deep into the swelling bosom that heaved with each panting breath. The face she saw, white, rapt, and strangely glowing, with parting, quivering lips, with great, staring, tragic eyes. This could not be Madeline Hammond's face. Yet as she looked, she knew no fancy could really deceive her. That she was only Madeline Hammond could at last end of the brooding dreams. She swiftly realized the change in her, divining its cause and meaning, accepted it as inevitable, and straightway fell back again into the mood of bewildering amazement. Calmness was unattainable. The surprise absorbed her. She could not go back to count the innumerable steps of her undoing. Her own power of reflecting, analyzing, even thinking at all seemed to have vanished in pulsing stir, sense of one new emotion. She only felt all her instinct outward action, that was her physical relief, all of her involuntary inner strife that was maddening, yet unutterable sweet. They seemed to just be one bewildering effect of surprise. In a nature like hers, when strength of feeling had long been inhabited as a manner of training, such a transforming surprise as sudden consciousness of passionate love required time for its awakening, time for its sway. By and by, that last enlightening movement came, and Madeline Hammond faced not only the love in her heart, but the thought of the man she loved. Suddenly, as she raged something in her, this dauntless new personality took arms against indignation of Gene Stuart. Her mind whirled about him and his life. She saw him drunk and brutal, saw him abandoned, lost. And then, out of the picture she had of him thus slowly grew one of a different man. Weak, sick, changed by shock, growing strong, strangely, spiritually altered, silent, lonely like an eagle, secretive, tireless, faithful, soft as a woman, hard as iron to endure, and at the last, noble. She softened. In a flash, Her complex mood changed to one wherein she thought of the truth, the beauty, the wonder of Stuart's uplifting. Humbly she trusted that she had helped him to climb. That influence had been the best she had ever exerted. It was wrought magic in her own character. By it she had reached some higher, nobler plane of trust in man. She had received infinitely more than she had given. Her swiftly flying memory seemed to a sort of vast mine of memories of the past. Of that letter Stuart had written to her brother she saw vivid words. But she had known, and if it had not made any difference then, now it made all in the world. She recalled how she had loosened her hair and had it blown across his lips that night he had ridden down from the mountains carrying her in his arms. She recalled the strange joy of pride in Stuart's eyes when he had suddenly come upon her dressed to receive her Eastern guest in the white gown with red roses at her breast. Swiftly as they came, these dreamful memories departed. There was to be no rest in her mind. All she had thought and felt seemed only a presage of tumult. Heedless, desperate, she cast off the remnants of the self-control, turned from the old proud, pale, cold, self-contained ghost of herself to face this strange, strong, passionate woman. Then, with hands pressed to her beating heart, with eyes shut, she listened to the ringing trip-hammer voice of circumstance, of truth, of fatality. The whole story was revealed, simple enough in the sum of its complicated details, strange and beautiful in part, remorseless in its proof of great love on Stuart's side, in dreaming blindness of her own, and from the first fatal moment to the last, prophetic of tragedy. Madeline, like a prisoner in a cell, began to pace to and fro. "Oh, it's all terrible. I am his wife, his wife. That meeting of him, the marriage, and then his fall, and his love, his rise to silence, his pride. I can never be anything to him. Could I be anything to him? I, Madeline Hammond? But I am his wife, and I love him. His wife. I am the wife of a cowboy. That can't be undone. Can my love be undone? Do I want it undone? He's gone, though. Could he have meant... I will not dare think of it. He'll come back. No, he never will. What should I do?" For Madeline Hammond, the days following that storm of feeling was leaden foot, endless and hopeless. A long succession of weary hours, sleepless hours, passionate hours, all haunted by a fear slowly growing into torture. A fear that Stuart had crossed the border to invite the bullet which would give her freedom. The day came when she knew this to be true. The spiritual tidings reached her, not subtly, as so many divinations had come, but in a clear, vital flash of certainty. And then she suffered. She burned inwardly, and the nature of that deep fire showed through her eyes, and she kept to herself, waiting for her fears to be confirmed. At times she broke out in wrath at the circumstances she had failed to control, at herself, at Stuart. "He might have learned from Ambrose," she exclaimed, sick with a bitterness she knew was not consistent with her pride. She recalled Kristen's treacherous explanation of Ambrose's wooing. "He tells me he loves me, and he kisses me. He hugs me, and he puts me on his horse, and he rides away with me, and he marries me." She remembered these words of her maid. Then in the next breath Madeline denied this instinctive clamoring of a love that was gradually breaking her spirit. Like a somber shadow, remorse followed her, shading blacker. She had been blind to a man's honesty, manliness and uprightness, faith and striving. She had been dead to love. to nobility that she had herself created. Padre Marco's grave, wise words returned to haunt her. She fought her bitterness and scorned intelligence and hiding her pride and weakening, giving up more and more to a yearning, hopeless hope. She had shunned the light of the stars as she had violently dismissed every hinting suggestive memory of Stuart's kisses. But one night she went deliberately to her window, and there they shone, her stars, beautiful, passionless as always, but strangely closer and warmer, speaking a kinder language, helpful as they've never been, teaching her now that regret was futile, revealing to her, in their one grand, blazing task, the supreme duty of life, to be true to oneself. Those shining stars made her yield. She whispered to them that they had claimed her. The West claimed her. Stuart claimed her forever, whether he lived or died. She gave up her love. And it was as if he was there in person, dark-faced, fiery-eyed, violent in action, crushing her to his breast in that farewell moment, kissing her with one burning kiss of passion, and then, with cold, terrible lips of renunciation, "I am your wife," she whispered to him. In that moment, throbbing, exalted, quivering in her first sweet, tumultuous surrender to love, she would have given her all, her life, to be in his arms again, to meet his lips, to put forever out of his power any thought of wild sacrifice. And on the morning of the next day, when Madeline went out onto the porch, Stillwell, haggard and stern, with a husky, incoherent word, handed her a message from El Cajon, and she read, "El Capitan Stuart, captured by rebel soldiers in fight at Agualaprenta yesterday. He was a sharpshooter in the federal ranks, sentenced to death Thursday at sunset." End of chapter 23.